everyone, and welcome back to the workbench for another project here. This is going to be an Intermountain covered hopper I'm going to be weathering here. You guys just saw the prototype photo flash up on the screen. This is a car I got a really good deal on, and I couldn't pass it up, and I think I paid like $12 or $13 for it. So when I saw it listed, I went ahead and grabbed it. So as you can see, we're going to be starting off doing some airbrushing. We're going to use some aged white from Vallejo airbrush. We're just going to go ahead and start spraying that on there and getting our base coat down for this. So as I was saying there, trying to do a voiceover deal here, something a little different, because I find when I try and do these how-to videos and all that, it's kind of difficult to actually work on things and talk at the same time. It's a bit tricky, so I figure, you know what, I'll come through, I'll record all this, and I'll come back and do a voiceover, and hopefully I can get this all to edit together well. But, so I just put the paint there into the airbrush. What I do is I thin down the paint. I don't have a specific science to it. It's probably like 30% paint to 70% thinner, somewhere in there. I really like to thin that stuff down. I don't like to go too heavy with the fade coat as far as the paint itself goes, because the fade coat can build up kind of fast and kind of overpower things when you're doing this. So I'm just kind of, you know, hitting all the sides. As you can see, this car rolls very well. I'm gonna do a little pull it back up. It's trying to get away from me again. And I really like how the camera's doing the little fidget there every time the airbrush goes in front of it. So got that white on there. I believe next I put some rust brown on here next. If I'm not mistaken, or maybe it's rail brown, I think's what it's called. We'll know here in a second, because I'll hold it up to the screen. Yeah, that's a rail brown's what that is, from Badger Products. Yep, there we go. Is that 16175 rail brown? Now this stuff I don't really thin out. I just use it right out of the bottle as it is, and I just kind of vary how far back I'm pulling on the airbrush to kind of feather out how much paint's coming out of it. So we're kind of, you know, I'm not trying to paint the thing rail brown, but I am trying to get a pretty good coat of rail brown on there. Go ahead and hit the top a little bit. As you can see, my airbrush was plugging up a little bit, so I had to kind of throw it down there on the bottom. Gotta get it on. That's why I keep those paper towels around, just to spray it out, because sometimes this paint will kind of get gunked up a little bit. See, that's a really good shot of my hand there, because, you know, obviously I was more concerned about trying to cover the model than I was about trying to get the video done here, but I think y'all get the idea. I'm just going up and down, you know, from one end of the car to the other. I'm trying to get all these getting between these ribs. We'll come back and we'll wipe off all that paint off the actual ribs itself here in a little bit. Ooh, got a little heavy there. Oh yeah, got a little heavy on there. And that's where you reach over, you grab your Q-tip, and you just wipe it off. That's I always like to keep those Q-tips around for when I make mistakes, because I do make mistakes, fellas. That's just part of weathering and doing all this. It's not about whether you make a mistake or not. It's about how you fix your mistake when you're doing something like this. Especially when you're doing a really heavily weathered car, 9 times out of 10 you can generally make the problems go away and make it look really good in the end. Almost make it look like you meant to do that. I did not mean to I didn't mean to have to wipe that off there. So again, just need a little more in there. I actually have the my iPad sitting right next to me while I'm doing this, so that way I could kind of refer to the prototype photo to get a good idea of exactly how much of a rust flavor I need to add to this. You can see now we're going to go ahead and hit the other side of the car here. And for like the trucks and underside area, I'm just going all out on it. Just pretty much just painting those brown. Again, we're going up and down, up and down. Let's start top to bottom. And I'm trying not to get too much on the ConAgra logo in the center there because it didn't really have very much of a... It was still pretty white in the pictures I found, the photos. If I remember to do it, I'll edit those in the beginning back there, but or I believe they're actually in the intro to this. Alright, so now we got our acrylic thinner here. And we'll be getting some more handy dandy Q-tips here. Very, very useful tool when you're doing weathering or really any model painting is having these Q-tips around, especially when you're working with acrylic paint. As you can see, you just dab it in that thinner and you can just wipe off everywhere you goofed up and got a little bit too much rust on. As you can see, there's quite a bit of overspray from where I was trying to spray the sides of the car there. But I'm just, just trying to wipe it off. As I mentioned earlier, I'm not concerned about getting everything exactly perfect. Just getting it close. So I'm going to leave a little bit of that rust on there and get rid of the rest of it. But now here's where we're going to start to have some fun. You wipe some of that, you wipe the thinner edge along the side of the car, and then you take the dry edge of the Q-tip and you wipe it dry, and essentially it'll take that paint off those ribs. This is something that's pretty common with these covered hoppers is you tend to get like the flat sides of the car tend to be very, very dirty and rusty. And then with these ribs that are raised out, they tend to stay cleaner, and it's kind of a strange look, a lot of these old PS covered hoppers, but pretty cool when it comes to weathering. As you guys can see there too, if you look closely, if my hand's not in the way, you'll be able to kind of see where like the Q-tip does kind of overlap and get a little bit of the flat sides of the car somewhat. And occasionally you'll wipe a little bit of the paint off in there. It's not a big deal. You just keep on rolling with it. That'll kind of disappear as we get farther along into this, and we put like the wash coats and the chalk weather, the powder weathering later on. So got real heavy with the thinner on that spot there. Got a little carried away. Oh boy, got that. Got a little bit much there. Didn't mean to do that, but it'll disappear later on. And just working from one side of the car to the other here. As you can tell with my right-handed technique, I am working from the left side of the car to the right. For those of you that are left-handed, I would recommend starting with the right side and working left, obviously. That way you're not wiping your hand on sort of that area where there's thinner and all that. And there you go. Good look at the side there. I'll go ahead and flip it around, and we're going to do the same thing over again. I believe, oh yeah, we're going to do the same thing over again. I sped it up though. I figured once I show it one time, I don't have to have it at half speed for the whole thing. Well, not half speed, but I don't have to have it in slow motion when I'm just doing one side. I figure that'll kind of make this video not be an hour long. I think all in all, I might have probably an hour into weathering this car from start to finish, like all the steps involved. So if you're curious, it's like an hour to do all this, but the thing to keep in mind is there's all the drying time involved. So normally you do 2 or 3 cars and you let them sit for a while, and once they're dry you come back and you do the next step and the next step, and you get a handful of cars done every week or two just doing that right there alone. Man, look at that, already done with that side. Alright, now we're going to do our wash coat. This is a panel line wash from MIG Products. And this stuff I thin down considerably. Generally, I'll thin this almost half down what it is right out of the jar. I don't like to use it straight out of the jar. It's almost black. It's too much. So I generally take it, I'll thin it down with a enamel thinner and use that kind of to go with, so that way it's not too harsh. But this stuff really does a great job of just kind of getting the nooks and crannies and kind of darkening everything up a little bit, which is what I was going for here. As you can see, just kind of paint it all over everything there, hit the bottom sides of the car and all that. There's a little bit of an idea, as you can see, all of it rolls to the bottom, but then I'll take and dump it down. And the big thing when you do this step is you want to leave the car laying flat on its side till it dries. That way that wash doesn't all gather at either the top or the bottom. So now obviously the slope bottoms sides, that's all going to run down to the bottom there, but that's why I wasn't really going too heavy down in that area. Not like I was on the sides of the car anyhow. The sides of the car I was putting it on pretty thick, but as you can tell there from the photo, it really goes into the edge as well. Now, this is a burnt umber paint. I'm going to paint the wheels here and the couplers. I sped this up because if any of you that have watched any of my other weathering videos, I do this in every single one of them. So I figured, you know, I don't think we need to spend a half an hour watching me paint wheels and all that fun stuff. So I sped this up. Just get the inside of the wheel there. Try not to get paint everywhere, but generally end up getting paint everywhere. And of course, paint the inner edges of the wheel too. That's one of those things that drives me nuts when I see people weather cars. They don't paint the insides. So they'll have this car that looks pretty dang good, but then when you see it at track level, you could see the inside of the wheels still all shiny, and it just doesn't look right to me. So take the minute, paint the insides of the wheels, the center sections, all that, and do it right. You know, give it the good try. Give it the good try. You can also probably note here I added a little weight to the bottom of this car. I don't know if it's the truck frames or what on these Intermountain cars, but they always seem to not want to stay on the rails for me. So I like to add a little bit of weight to them just to kind of weigh them down a good bit and just kind of help operation a little bit better. Go ahead and paint in the couplers. Now we gotta do the other sides of the wheels. I can't tell you the number of times that I've done a car, especially when I'm doing like a unit train or something. I'll paint one side of the wheels on a car and I'll forget where I was, and I'll only do one side and I won't realize it until I'm done and I'm doing my final stuff to clean up the car before I put it on the layout, and I go, oh no. So always take your time and remember, do both sides of the wheel, not just one, and both sides of the car as well. Alright, now we got our, we still have our brown paint here, our burnt umber I believe it is. Now we're just going to come in, we're going to start doing a little hand painting work here. Just have a small, like kind of finer tip brush, nothing too fancy. I'm going to do a little wiping here with the Q-tip. I'm just going to kind of put a little dab up there, and I'm just going to wipe it off, okay? Now, it's not going to look like much, but that's how you do all your streaking and everything. You just put a little paint down, wipe it off. Put a little paint down, wipe it off. You just keep doing that over and over again, and it'll eventually kind of get in, and it'll build those streaks the way you want. And the beauty of doing this is, you know, worst case, if you don't like how it looks, you just get a little thinner and you wipe it right off. If you're newer at doing this and you're just starting to do some of your weathering, I would recommend clear coating between each step. That way when you make a mistake and you have to clean it off, you could always use the thinner, and you don't have to worry about taking off that initial airbrush coat or anything in the process. But Really here, I'm just kind of referring to my photo and just kind of, you know, putting some rust spots here and there, just kind of getting some big chunky spots, you know, some big dabs of rust, you know. Nothing too crazy here, nothing too wild, just little bits and pieces here. And you can see my wonderful job cleaning up the ConAgra logo. Like I mentioned, I left a little bit of that rust on there just kind of for flavor. And this is one of those steps where it's not going to look good at first. It's kind of going to look crappy. That's just, you know, just the way it is. It's the truth. But you got to just, you know, kind of remember that you're building layers here. That's what this is all about, is it's layers, layers, layers. That's what makes good weathering. If you try and just do like one layer, it'll never look as good. Ooh, got a nice streaky line there. I like that. And I'm not sitting here measuring and changing brushes 100 times. That's the same dang brush over and over again. Just little spots here and there. And the thing about it is just trying to be random. You know, you don't want to have a pattern to your rust or anything unless the car specifically has that. And this car didn't have that. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to our logo here in the middle. I noticed in the photo there's a lot of rustiness around the edge of the car. So I went ahead and came in, just kind of what I'm doing right now is you see me kind of like put down some paint and stop as I'm looking at the photo and just kind of studying it and then trying to mimic somewhat what I can from the photo. I got that screwed up. Oh boy, I really screwed that up. Let's see. Oh yeah, just smear it down, that'll work. So we'll just put some more paint over there and it'll just look like it's streaking out of there. And still don't like that. Oh boy, now we're making a mess. Look at all. There, we see that. I think that's more what I was going for right there. And as with the other weathering videos I've done, I'm not trying to be perfect here. I'm not trying to exactly match the rust. For those of you that may be new, that haven't seen it before, I'm not one to get carried away in trying to be exact. I just want it to be a close, good representation. Just because, you know, you could spend hours and hours and hours trying to paint everything exact and making it perfect, and I try to keep it at a level where I get something I'm very, very happy with, but I didn't rip my hair out in the process. As you can see there, I screwed up again, so let's do our Q-tip wipe. Always keep Q-tips around, guys, always. Gotta have them for this. In weathering, they are just as invaluable as it gets. Now, oh, we're gonna put a little rust on the A. I like that. Alright, so there's our rust on one side there. Let's see, what did I do now? Oh, I put the, this is some environment rust texture from Vallejo. I love this stuff, especially for doing boxcar roofs or anything like that. This stuff is just excellent. It's, I don't know what's in it. It's got like some kind of powder or something, or what it is, but it like is this textured rusty look when you're done, and it just looks awesome. So I take this and I'm going to lay it on the top of the car pretty heavy because I want the top of the car rusted. So I'm just going to take and brush this stuff on. If you haven't tried this stuff out before, I highly recommend it. It's a really cool deal. It's textured and all that. Definitely hunt some down if you do a lot of weathering. It's cool stuff. I really enjoy it. But just going to kind of get in between everything in here. Another thing you could do, especially on covered hoppers, you could always paint the hatches on the roof. You could, like, they replaced them and all that. I didn't do that on this one because, well, I didn't really feel like it. And I figured this car could be in salt service on my layout. That's why it's kind of rusty and beat up. So, there we go. Now I got the camera to zoom in. I broke my own rule here. I started on the right and I worked left. What am I doing? You always start on the left and work right. And just getting it all up in there in the top. I love how the camera will focus on my glove. I mean, it's a great picture of my glove right now, but that is not what I needed the camera to do. Yep, there it goes again. Nope, back on the glove. Alright, there we go. But just kind of getting in there really good, not too overly concerned if I get this stuff somewhere else. I'm gonna go back and hit the roof, the walkways with it. Of course, this this high-dollar Intermountain car I bought here has the classic Intermountain walkway roof bow, as you can see there. For as nice as these cars are, it's really kind of a bummer that the walkways did that on them. But again, for what I paid for this, it's pretty irrelevant to me. Minor things like that won't drive me nuts, especially when I'm getting a steal of a deal, because I think these cars go for like $40 new anymore. So the like $10 to $15 I paid for this one, I'm very pleased with it, especially when I found that prototype photo. That was what really kind of sold me on it, and kind of figured it would make a good video too. So it's kind of, I will note I'm going a little bit lighter on the walkway than I was on the general roof of the car. And we're flipping the car around. We'll do the other side. Oh, I guess I did paint the other side. I must not have videoed that. Or maybe that's the side we painted. I don't know. I could be missing a piece of the video and didn't see it when I was editing. There's another great up close shot of my glove. And just the same as the other side, just, throwing that on there pretty good. Ugh, I did it again. I'm working from right to left. What am I doing? I'm just getting up there by them hatches now. And in the walkway. And there you guys get a good angle on it there. That'll dry with like a textured look to it. Let's see what we're doing now. Oh, we got the marker out now. This is like a super fine tip Sharpie marker. It's a dark brown one. And really all I do when I use this is I just kind of come in and I'll take, and for this particular car, what I was doing was there was these very fine rust lines right down this right down like where the ribs would be at behind the ConAgra logo. So I was just kind of basically just freehand drawing those on there. As you can tell, they're a little wonky, but good enough from good enough for HO scale. That's the way I look at it. But anywho, these markers, I found these like a year ago, and I love these things for weathering, for really getting like your fine detail. You can't beat them. Like whenever you try and use a brush, no matter how fine of a tip brush you use, it always ends up being a little bit too big and it doesn't look right. But these fine tip markers are just awesome. So what I'm doing is I'm coming in and I did the lines there, and now I'm going into all those rust spots and I'm just making little darker like dots and marks inside of them. Basically just to what's the word I'm looking for? Just kind of add some depth to them. I'm also kind of trying to hit around the edges and stuff, and kind of use them a little bit here. kind of use them to kind of fan it out a little bit too. Because when you put the Sharpie on top of the brown paint, it's darker and it looks really good. But then when you put the Sharpie on the white, it actually looks lighter. So it kind of lets you get two different color styles out of one technique here. And I'm doing it on the logo end section here in the center first, and then I'll go out onto the car side and start hitting some of those other rust spots as well. This is really, I love these markers for doing like detail work on locomotives too, with weathering, hitting all the small spots. These are also really good for using like for doing scrape marks and all that, where there's like a scrape in the side of a car and it rusted. These are really handy for that. But if you can see there, you kind of see where those darkened spots are at in the rust. It's just adding the depth to places, you know. That's what makes a good weathering job. It's not any one particular thing. It's about adding all the little layers together to make a good finished product. Add a little bit to that chunky spot down there. Add a few marks up there at the top too. Why not? Let's do it. Yeah, that's pretty good. It's pretty good. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. Oh, you know it. Just drawing the line right in there. The beauty of this fine tip marker is when you're trying to make a straight line freehand and you just completely botch it, you can afford to make it a little bit wider and straighten it out because of how fine tip that is. So it kind of really works to your benefit. Just hitting all them rust spots again. I believe right here I tried to do some rust along the edges, but for some reason the marker wasn't wanting to work there. No, it was working along that edge. I'll be darned. I didn't think it was when I tried to do that. Maybe it was a different spot. Now again, just adding some marks and darker areas to the random rust splotches that are in different places on the car. Just kind of add some depth and some lines. One of the things that made this car a bit of a challenge was the photos I had for the prototype photos were actually from like 2007, 2008. So I was kind of having to try and go like somewhat similar to that, but somewhat lighter, but similar. And that's why if you see the prototype photo in the background is a little bit darker. There's a good up close shot of the marker work. Oh, we're getting into powders now. Now for the fun part. But no, so I kind of wanted the prototype photo of the car was actually dirtier than this. It was a lot darker, but I tried to go a little bit lighter when I did this to kind of make it somewhat plausible that it looked this bad in the late 90s. It probably didn't, but either way, I just thought it was a cool car and a cool prototype, and it'll look good on the ONWD. Now, as you guys saw, I got a little bit of this rust red powder that I'm having my brush, and I'm pretty much just splotching it on here and there at random. No particular real rhyme or reason other than just kind of putting it in different spots just to kind of add a little depth and help blend things in. Just tell how it kind of really is I'm putting it on that ConAgra logo, and I'm trying to fan it down to just kind of make it bleed down a little bit. Oh, got to fall over. That's no fun. Never fails. Another zoom in shot on my glove. And another time it's not going to focus on the car, it's going to focus on my glove. Ooh, my arm. Alright, cool. And see, you just take that powder and just kind of fan it in different rust spots and just kind of brush it in a little bit. The thing about working with powders is generally they're going to look really, really heavy when you put them on. You could really make something look good, but when you go to clear coat it, a lot of that goes away. A lot of the powder will disappear. So you kind of want to go a little bit heavy with the powders to a degree, because you're going to lose quite a bit of it when you clear coat. I've got a more dirt brown powder here. Let's see what I do with this, because I don't remember. I think I just kind of put this at random in places. Oh, you know what? I hit the truck sets and the underside a little bit with it, I believe, just to kind of add a little texture to them, and throw a little bit on the car side for flavor too. Never hurts to have a few different flavors of color of rust. And once we finish this up, we'll be putting a clear coat on. The clear coat I'll be using is it's called Flat Crystal Clear. It's a lacquer from Krylon. I've been using it for quite a while. It works pretty well. That should be once I get done playing with the powders here. Hopefully this voiceover also will work. I'm recording a voiceover right now for the video, so hopefully I can get this to edit together. We'll see what happens. If I ever get done playing with these powders, we might know. But we'll see here. Again, just putting some random spots of a lighter color brown rust on there. Yeah, throw a little up on the roof too, why not? Oh, there's our Flat Crystal Clear from Krylon Color Max. Really like this stuff. So let's go ahead and get this on here, and once it's dried and I have all the finish work done on the car, y'all will get to see it run around the layout. So stay tuned for that here shortly.